Button. All right, we are live. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time. It's me, Bill Patton, and I'm here with David Smith, master tennis professional. And we're going to do some introductions and we're going to get into the topic of how to create a winning team culture. And easier said than done. So, but there are some certain things that you can do. So, Dave, take it away. Go ahead and give a quick introduction of yourself.
Well, I think most of you know who I am, but if you've first come to the Bill and Dave show, I'd like to say a little bit about who I am. Most of you know I've written 3 top tennis books, Tennis Mastery, Coaching Mastery, and my latest High School Coaching Mastery. And so one of the things that I try to convey is my 45 years of teaching some of the most successful high school teams in the country, at the same time also having the largest teams in the country, averaging over 50 to 55 boys or girls on a team. And so I've had teams in Southern California. I've gotten the benefit of playing my junior tennis in Southern Cal, my college tennis in Southern Cal, and then coached in California with my father and after he passed away. And so between the two of us in that team in Orange County, we won 13 consecutive region titles without a loss. We won over 399 consecutive matches. But more importantly, we were always one of the top 3 teams at CIF, which is the state realm of competition. I did move to Arizona after that and had the same success. I had a team that won 300 matches in my 6 years, and then I moved to Southern Utah about 28 years ago and I was the head pro at a top 5 nationally ranked club. I opened my own academy and now currently building a large tennis and pickleball facility. In fact, the largest in the country, combining tennis, pickleball, fitness, and golf. Actually, some of you may know my daughter is a world ranked golfer. So that's it in a nutshell. Bill, it's your turn. Tell me who you are.
Well, I've been coaching for 35 years and I'm currently on my 13th school. So the longest I've been at one school was 6 years. And, but yeah, one thing I like to do is sort of take on the hard cases. So sometimes it's a little rough, but I generally tend to gravitate towards inner city schools where, kids haven't had the opportunity to get good coaching and have an opportunity to advance. So, in fact, we were talking about ending losing streaks. Probably one of my most proud moments was when my boys team broke its 37 match losing streak in my first year. But then my girls outdid that by breaking their 71 match losing streak. And then we also became a feel good story on the news. So we were interviewed on the local sports station here that covers high school tennis. So, or high school sports in general. But, that's very exciting. But, I've had some sectional champion teams in NorCal, and in California, a section is practically a state in a lot of places. But anyway, so we're gonna talk about how to develop a winning culture, and we're gonna talk for a bit, but it's open for questions and answers. So if you have a question, you can reach out to us. If you actually want to get a link and get into this, that's not too late to do that. Just send me an email at infinitevisioncoach@gmail.com and I will send you a link to get you in here. So, I have to admit I used the word winning, but it was kind of a little bit of a bait. And now here comes the hook, right? because really I think while it's good to have outcome goals, it's far better to spend a lot more time working on the process goals of what are the things that you do in order to start winning. So Dave, what's like the number one thing that you do as a process that helps aid in your players becoming more successful?
Well, you kind of broke up there a little bit, so I think I got most of that. So the first step for any coach who wants to develop a successful team, and successful also leads to winning. When I took over the team behind me in the picture you see, that team hadn't won a region title in I think 6 years. And the first thing I walked into that team meeting with the parents and the players with 55 girls and however many parents was, I said, I don't go into coaching with anything less than reaching the pinnacle of success, meaning a state championship. I said, within 3 years, we will be a Utah State championship team. And I said, but we can't just say that. We have to earn it. And so the first thing I'm going to answer your question, Bill, is this. You've got to create a mechanism as a coach that creates sincere desire for each player to want to accelerate learning, to become better. And that's where a lot of coaches fail in understanding how to motivate kids to want to play tennis year round, and certainly during season, how to improve during the 2-3 months of your season. But obviously coaching, a lot of coaches coach other sports, so they're kind of set in that window of opportunity. I will say this, though, if you run your team correctly, your boys or your girls are going to continue to reach out to each other to find places where they can learn tennis, because if you create the mechanism, which I'll talk about later, what is that mechanism? Then you have players that will continue to accelerate. And I've got a lot of these girls behind me started off number 25, 35, 40 on my ladder, and ended up becoming varsity level players, becoming state champions, becoming regional champions, becoming invitational champions. So how do those players as low as let's say a 27 to 35 player become your top 7 or top 9 in California, whatever? So I'll talk more about that, but that's the first thing, is you better figure out how to incorporate a mechanism that each of those players realize they have a chance to make varsity. You give them the mechanism to reach varsity, and then they take it from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Yep. So, yeah. And, to piggyback off of that, I generally will be very quiet about outcome goals. A lot of times I will keep those to myself. So, but one exception to that, I had taken over a team that was very highly skilled, but was also underachieving at the sectional level. So when I met the kids for the first time, I said, we will win the sectional title while I'm here. And I thought, it might take 5 years or whatever, but it's going to happen. But it ended up happening in the second year. But that's also the last time I mentioned it. So I said, now we're going to shift towards the goals that we have. So, so I have 4 process goals that I use and I train the kids on. And they hear about them all the time. They hear about them before every match. Number 1, give 100% effort, because with high schoolers, that's a challenge. It's a challenge to get them to give 100% and to give it on a regular basis. And you're going to see some dips in effort level. So, whereas 2 players might be equal, if one player's giving 100% and the other one 95%, the one who's giving 100 is going to win. I mean, every single time. Then the next goal is enjoy the competition. And, some kids have a harder time having fun with playing matches, and other players have a harder time really actually going all out to compete. So, finding out what's the area where that player or your team needs to grow is important. In general, but not always true. In general, boys tend to be too serious about the competition, and girls tend to be maybe not competitive enough. But it's not always true. I mean, some of my most competitive players ever have been girls. Third goal is show yourself strong and wise, and that has to do with body language and behavior, and not being a pushover, showing physically that you're going to fight for every point until the very end. And being smart enough and strong enough that you're not going to allow yourself and your team to be cheated. And then finally, from those three, we learn from everything. So the bottom line goal is, whether things are going well or they're going poorly, what did you learn from it, and how can you move forward from that? So, so anyway, Dave, back to you.
Well, I love those four very distinctive and very easy to understand, and I think that's one of the things. If you're going to develop a culture, is you've got to create a culture that's understood by the parents, understood by the players, and certainly agreed upon with the coaching. That you cannot expect your players to do this, but if you as a coach are only going to do this, you have a disassociation with the players and their effort.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always tell coaches, you can't just tell your team to do the things that Bill just brought up, which are all the things that I think are absolutely critical to a successful team. You've got to actually make those become sincere, understood, and sincerely agreed, or a mutual appreciation to say, we need to do this. And I think that's where my ladder program, the ability to give a kid, hey, if you do this, this, and this, you're going to have a chance to go up here. A lot of coaches barricade themselves into telling players, yeah, you're just not good enough. They cut them. Okay, great, fine. I don't agree with it. I think it's the dumbest thing in the world, because I've had way too many kids that would have been cut from my program or any other program, and they went on to become state champions. So you cut them, you never will discover.
Yeah.
But
hey, let me break in on this one thought keeps coming back to me, and I want to make sure I share it before I forget. But one of the things that I do to show the kids the difference between their effort level and 100% effort is, I'll have them do a running drill. One of my staple drills is the spider run. I love it. They start at the baseline in the middle, and they touch every corner of the big rectangle and return. Right. So lots of changes direction, takes, anywhere from 15 to 20 seconds if you're really slow. And so I'll have them do that. And then I'll say, all right, I'll say, what was your effort level? Did you give 100%? And, a lot of times they will have realized they didn't really go their fastest. So then, we do it again and they do better. And then we do a thing where they have to race somebody to be done, right? Winner is done. And then the people who don't win are going to do more. So then we get done with that. And I'm like, now, did you see the difference between what you did when you could be done and what the other thing was before? And like, see, that was 100%. Now do that all the time. So, and then they go, oh, it's really an interesting thing, because we can yell at them and scream at them and criticize them all we want. But if we show it to them, then they know what it is, and then they have a chance to buy in or not. So, all right.
Let me add to that, because I think there's creating mechanisms that allow players to discover it without being told they're discovering it is what you just described. I mean, you create a competitive environment. They're fired up. They want to do it. It's not because you yelled at them. It's because they had a intrinsic competition that they needed to step it up. And you point out to them that, well, there's where you need to be. So one of the drills, some of the simple drills that we do, is we do a forehand backhand volley drill. And I tell them they have to get to 100 in a row. And I said, typically kids will get to 20 and they'll miss. They'll get to 21, 23, 25, 15, depending on their level. More advanced players are getting to 75, 50. I said, what happens when you're missing at 20? Your mind is wandering. You're not seeing the ball as clearly. And so something's happening. You're getting to 5 with no problem. You're getting to 10 with no problem. But 25, when I was in college, we had to do 300 in a row. And I tell the kids this all the time. You want to know pressure? 297. 298.
Right.
You miss at 299. You've got to start over. And
Yeah,
so
that's
that's one
brutal.
of those value of focusing again, trying to create. And it's hard. I mean, getting kids to do 50 in a row if they're more beginnerish, and even advanced players do 100 in a row, just even a forehand to forehand volley. And we do a lot of different volley drills. But that's just one example of a way to get kids to say, you can't leave. You're not done till you hit
Yeah,
100. And I think those two go very nicely together, whether it's a physicality, a focus, mental toughness drill, like the volley drill I just mentioned, or other
yeah,
components. So good.
yeah. No, and I think just I think right now I think we can just kind of go stream of consciousness because we don't really have a really big outline here. But one of the things that's interesting to me is if you're new to coaching a team or a kid is new to your team and they have lost their match, um, I think kids could be actually somewhat frightened, and at very least they're going to be a little apprehensive to come talk to you if they've lost their match.
Yep.
And so that's a big moment. That is such a huge moment because the fact, so if that becomes something where you still accept them the same way that you accepted them before they played,
Right.
and you are also willing to give them a little time to sort of lick their wounds before you go and you have an objective evaluation of the match, then then good lessons can be learned there. But if you're in your player's face and then you also have lots of criticism for the 7 or the 17 different things that they did wrong, um, and in sort of a blaming mode, then not much can happen there. And so with that, I mean, I would say the best thing to do is say, hey, come talk to me when you're ready, and we'll go over, we'll talk about one or two things that you can do better from that. Right? What's the number one thing you need to work on?
Right.
And just solve problems one at a time, because you can't do a wholesale change on a player from one match to the next.
Right. I think the important thing is understanding if you've got a team, you're going to have diversity in emotional, psychological maturity. And so you as a coach you cannot adopt a single one size fits all persona to attack players if they lose or don't perform well. You know, I usually take it more personally myself that I failed them rather than they failed the team. Because if I didn't get a player ready, then that's on me. Now, that's maybe unfair to myself, but um, I feel that I've had too much success with players who started at the raw bottom of our ladder, become highly successful players, highly skilled, highly competitive, full-on college scholarships, etc. So, one of the things that I've learned, certainly as I've matured, is that, as you just said, Bill, you're not going to change the dynamic of a player in that moment. You can, however, create an open dialogue by the way you approach them. Hey, when you're ready, I used to do this with my daughter in the golf world. And I said, after, hey, when you're, whether she played great or not, I always said, hey, when you're ready, come on over. Let's talk about your match or your tournament. And so being cognizant of that immaturity of a typical high school age, young boy, young girl, and realizing they're still trying to find out about themselves and they're trying to discover things, that you can help that along by being more positive and saying, you know what you did wrong? Or instead of that, saying, hey, you know what you did really well in that match? And get them feeling good about that aspect. Again, it's how you approach each child, each kid, and how you open the door for that dialogue. Because initially, like you said, Bill, if they lost, they don't want to show their face. They're embarrassed or they're whatever. And so I think you as a coach need to make sure that they feel extraordinarily welcome, extraordinarily appreciated, that hey, you may not have won, but it looked like, some kids are not out there giving it their all, and those are the ones you've got to kind of take to the side and treat a little bit, uniquely. But at the same time, if you open that door enough times, those kids that may not have been giving 100% when they needed to will start to want to give 100% rather than feeling obligated because I keep screwing up and the coach is pissed, that kind of thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, I referenced those goals earlier, and, so being consistent with the message. So like what Dave is talking about, if you're the same way every time after every match, whether they won or lost, then it takes a lot of the sting away from losing. If they know they can learn something from winning, and they can also learn something from losing. One expression that I really hate is the one where people say, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And the ridiculous part of it, it's like it almost elevates losing to be more important than winning. And I always ask this question, well, how do you learn how to win? And then not only that, but if you win, you should probably also still be learning, because you probably didn't play a perfect match. So there's still something to learn. But, before every match, we have this mantra that we say. So before every match, we say, today, confidence is my biggest weapon. I will give 100% effort, enjoy the competition, and show myself strong and wise. I learn from every match. I get 65% of my first serves in play, my feet in position for every shot, and continually pressure my opponent. I love a tough match. It's funny because this year with my girls team, I had two girls that all of a sudden stopped saying it with us, and they thought they were just being so, bad and whatever. And I just ignored them because they still have to hear us say it. The words still go in their ears. So yeah. So sorry it didn't work just because your lips didn't move, right? But when they say that before every match, it frames their competition that way. And there've been a handful of times that my team has lost on the scoreboard in like a narrow match, or even losing pretty badly. But at the end of the match, we said, look, you gave 100% effort, all of you. You enjoyed the competition, showed yourself strong and wise, and you learned something today. You won. I mean, it's so you can define success differently, because some matches just aren't winnable because the opponent is just so superior, right?
Yeah, and those matches are the opportunity to study an opponent, whether you're a player playing that opponent or if you're a teammate watching. Is that if these players are superior, how are they superior? How are they executing differently? Are they moving differently? Are their strokes flatter, or do they hit with more spin, which is usually the case? What's their first serve percentage? Manufacturing points and these kind of things. So they're all learning. I love that the other phrase that goes with what you said, and they said winning can be a habit. Unfortunately, so can losing. And so if you create a team that isn't striving for team unity and team success, you will create a team that gets used to losing. And I know that my processes of how I've operated my teams not only have produced teams that won 1,100 matches against less than 20 losses, but more importantly than that, because once you develop a program, if you've developed it correctly, it will sustain itself. It's sort of like an author who's written a book. Bill and I have both written several books. Once you've written your first book, now you know you can do it, and you start reeling off book after book. And I've got 10 different books, 3 tennis and other books that I feel like if I hadn't written that first book, I'm probably still be on zero. But I think a team will also discover, I cannot tell you, well, I can tell you, we came back from down match point 16 times with the girls team behind me, where we were down match point and came back and won those matches. And
Wow.
so that creates an understanding. I use an analogy. I share this with my kids, and maybe you've used this, Bill. I use a crystal ball mentality. I do share this in my books, and that is, if you had a crystal ball, and you tell the team this, and it really means a lot. You have a crystal ball, and it's a real one. Let's say it somehow predicts the future, and you're playing a pretty good team or whatever, and the crystal ball says you're going to lose the first set, you're going to be down love 4 in the second set, but you're going to come back and win 6-4, 6-2. You know that's going to happen because the crystal ball is real. Now, if you were playing that match and you already knew the outcome based on that crystal ball, would you be upset being down love 4 in the second set after losing the first? And my kids all say no, because I already know I'm going to win. I said, exactly. So you have to play every match as if you already know you're going to win that match, whether you're down love 5, down a match, down break point, down a match point. You have to understand that the opportunity to come from behind and win that match is doable. And when it happened over and over, and then our opponents started realizing that even if they were ahead, they were going to lose. And so it was not only just within ourselves, but our opposing teams all knew we were always coming back from being behind in not all of our matches, because we won so many matches, but every so often there would be a match where we were down region finals, down 1-6-0-3.
Yeah.
And my girls ended up winning the next 12 games or whatever it was. So
yeah,
it can happen if you create the belief, and that's one mechanism I use that says you play. It doesn't guarantee you're going to win every match. No, it does guarantee that if you give it 100%, momentum can shift. Your opponent can start becoming doubtful, and now you've got them in your pocket. So that's a very good way to create belief in your players.
Yeah, no, I love that. And yeah, it's hard when it hasn't happened yet.
True.
But it's interesting because I think confidence comes from two places. It comes from previous success, and it comes from talking yourself into it. So that's why in our mantra it says, today confidence is my biggest weapon. And so and I try to get my players who haven't experienced that yet to start to play confidently. And then what happens? If they play confidently, they play better. And then I can relate to what you're saying too, because I've had 2 different programs that had very strong winning reputations, and many times there would be a kid who would be serving for the set against our kids, and our kids always believed they could come back, and that other kid had just a little bit of self-doubt because they'd never won a set against us in their career. So they're about to serve for it, but they're shaky. They don't even believe they can do it. And then on the changeover, I bring my player over. I'm like, look, do you see the uncertainty in that other player, right? So now just go break their serve and let's get this thing going. I wanted my, and then in a sectional title. I mean, this is a tournament that represents 145 schools, and we're in the finals. And the other team was a perennial champion of the section, and they were up 3-1, and we had to win the last 4 sets on court to make it happen. And it was 97 degrees. And our kids just never gave up. They just never succumbed to the pressure of having to win those last 4 sets. And they did it. And unfortunately, the kid from the other school double faulted on sectional championship point.
Wow.
And I was very sad about that, because we wanted a dog pile. I would have loved my kid to hit a winner and then for it, and then we could dog pile. But so yeah, it's like Dave said, whatever's happening, it snowballs. So if they have a habit of losing, then you have to start a new habit, and if they have a habit of winning, then you have to keep doing those processes. With my girls who snapped their 71 match losing streak, they enough, just enough of them bought into this process of we're going to get a little bit better every day, and our only win was the last match of the season that season, and so we only had one chance left, but those kids, just enough kids, bought into that. And then when I left that program, those kids maintained that momentum and they started winning more and more often. So it can continue to have some momentum, because once kids learn that lesson, they don't unlearn it.
Exactly.
So where do we go from here, Dave? Tell me what's another process thing like about that has to do with preparing for a match?
Well, the preparation begins at practice, and even beyond that, preparation in terms of organization and clear-cut rules, which we talked about last week. I'll add one more thing, because again, that confidence, you can self-talk yourself to be somewhat confident. Timothy Galway's Inner Game of Tennis talks a lot about that, certainly has some validity. But I will say this: confidence has to be bred through actual intention and experience, as we just talked about. So one of the things we talked about, I do 100 volleys in a row. When a kid knows he can hit 100 in a row, there's a level of confidence that is generated, that is earned rather than told, if that makes sense. The other thing is, I tell my players all the time, we never take a day off during a rainy day or a windy day or something where you can't play outside. And so I tell my players, we will be in the classroom, we will be in the hallway, we will be in the commons area where we can do volleys, we can do bounces, we can do catches, we can do partner feds, we can do alternations, all these drills. And I tell my players, you're getting better. The other teams that were sent home because it was a rainy day did not get better today. So there again, that subtle mention of we are going to work, and it may not be a full practice day. We oftentimes will do it for an hour and a half instead of the 3 hours that we typically practice. But the intent is complete, meaning my kids have just done something that they would not have otherwise done. Whether we did a chalk talk, watched videos, or worked on volleys, or a combination of all those, we're always going to practice during a rainy day. And that is something that will always produce a winning team over the course of several years as you develop a team, big time.
Yeah, no, that's great. And then you gave me something good I was thinking about something good while you were talking. So
what I'm here for.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, people need to know their roles, Dave. So you play yours. You play yours.
Am I Abbott or Costello?
It's hard to say who's on first, what's on second, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't come out of nowhere. So you made a really great clarification, because yes, you can talk yourself into it, but where's the work behind it? So I don't think players need pep talks right before a match. I think they need pep talks to get the work done. So like I'll put them through a pretty grueling fitness routine, and as they're starting to get a little tired and sucking wind and having some lung burn, then we'll take a little break, and I'll say, now look, one of the biggest benefits of what you're going through right now is that when you get into a tough match in the third set, or it's a grueling hot day and you feel like you're dying, two things. One, you will know that the opponent feels about the same or much worse. And number two, you will know that you have put in the hard yards, and you will feel like you deserve to win. And that's something that was true of me in my game. So when I started taking my conditioning a lot more seriously and working out a lot more so that I'd have the energy to win the match, not only did I have the energy, but I had the confidence in knowing that I deserved to win. And it's something that it really helped quite a few of my players, because that's the underpinning of that confidence.
Perfect. I agree. We just covered that. Now I'll add one more thing to that, because one of the other things that I do is, of course, most people who've seen my videos, we have 9 teaching carts with used balls. We get used balls from anywhere we can. We don't need great balls to do 90% of our drills. But when we have a match, there's 2 things that really create an aura of we are unstoppable. And that is when the other team shows up, we're already doing a dozen different drills with 9 teaching carts, a ball machine on our 3 courts. The other team is going to warm up on the back 3 courts. We have 6 courts. And 2 things are going to happen. One, their team is observing our team working their asses off before their match, meaning they're working on strokes, they're working on strategic shot making, serve and return, all the things that play into it, volley skills, different things. And it's very organized, it's very intense, and very regimented to a certain degree. And these other teams, you can actually see them walking out going, holy crap, these guys train like animals. I mean, we're not, it's not that big of a deal, but it is. And these teams are already beaten before they walk onto the court with us, because they know they did not do that kind of training, and they see us doing that kind of training. They recognize right away that we're superior in the training component. The other thing, of course, is I've mentioned this, is banners that identify your championship teams, if you've had any, either in the past or more recently. And those banners should be up on the top of your fence, facing your opponents when they sit on the bleachers for introductions. We won 6 consecutive region titles. We were in the finals of state 4 times, won it, and we've won the state title over the school's history about 6 or 8 times. So those banners are all up on the bleachers, overlooking where they enter the gate to go start their match. And our opposing players have to sit there literally staring at our success while we're doing our team introductions. And that's another variable that says, you know what, come and get us. We're prepared. And so those are 2 things that I thought I'd share with you, that, again, obviously, if you've never had success, and you wouldn't have banners, but you are going to be pursuing those banners, and hopefully quickly enough, you get new banners up.
Well, but it's not that simple. And I think that there's another part of this too that is kind of interesting. So the other end of it is, if you have a team that's been struggling for years and your kids are improving fast, then what you have is you have the blessing of low expectations on your side.
Right.
So the other team feels like they should beat you easily, but they don't know that there's a new sheriff in town, right? They don't know that the kids have bought into a new system that makes them more successful. So, oh man, this makes me laugh. All right, so I took over a team that had been last place perpetually, and there was like one other school that, if they were really doing great, and the other team was having a down year, they might beat them one time, right? So otherwise, they were just going to have unwinning seasons after unwinning season. But they might eke out one win per season. So anyway, I take over this team, and I've got some girls who really work hard, and we went and played some upper schools, and my girls actually made 9 different girls cry, because and then even when the match just started to get tough, the other coaches would come to me and they go, "Oh wow, your kids actually rally pretty well, right?" And I'm thinking, no, I'm like, yeah, thank you for condescending to my level. I really appreciate that.
Right.
And meanwhile, my kids up a break. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. And, look at the score. Yeah, they compete pretty well too.
Well, that's a great point.
Okay. And then my my girl wins, right? And I'm like, yeah, I really appreciate that compliment, that you gave earlier. That was very nice. Appreciate that. And then meanwhile, their players over there sobbing because they can't believe they lost to that school. So if you're a team that's been sort of downtrodden, I would really play that underdog card really hard. And even when the competition is just head and shoulders above, sell your kids on eking out a game, in a set. Don't give up bagels. Don't eat bagels. And then if you got a game this time, then the next time around in the next part of the round robin, get 2 games. I mean, have some kind of goal where it's like, hey girls, last time cumulatively we won 17 games against this team. So this time, if you win 19, I'm taking you out to ice cream, right? And then they can all get behind that, and then that creates some momentum, and they start to see some progress.
Well, and then you can play the next comment to your players is, if you can win 2 games, you can win 3. If you can win 3, you can win 5. If you can win 5, you can win a set. So, I mean, those are great. I had a team in Southern Cal. We had a really good reputation, but I had an entire team of Vietnamese Asian boys, and we were playing Palm Desert. Wealthy Caucasian kids that came off their very, very nice bus. They were cocky as hell. They looked at my team of relatively small Vietnamese boys who were quiet, reserved. They made fun. They were racist. They were saying things that you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And our team beat them 14-4. And
let me bust in on that, because see, this is the flip side, right? So if you want to have a winning culture, right, then don't make yourself vulnerable by being arrogant.
Yep.
Absolutely. And one thing, when my teams start to feel some success, right, and they're starting to get better and they feel better about themselves, we guard very carefully against mistreating the opponents,
Yes.
So, I'm like, hey, we give 100% effort out of respect for the other player.
Yep.
Yep. We enjoy the competition because we want to be friendly on the court, while we're playing hard, right? We show ourselves strong and wise because it's foolish to be arrogant, right? You're going to love this. All right. So we go rolling into Tiburon to go play at Harbor Point Club, where Grand Slam champions are members. Okay. And one of the parents who knows me says, "Congratulations, Bill. You've had a great season." And I'm like, well, I mean, it's really nice you said that, except for your use of the past tense, because the match is coming up.
Yep.
Right. And then my kids just played out of their minds, and they were like 9 seeds, and they beat the number 1 seed that day, and they've got their number 1 kid had a full ride to USC, and they had 2 other kids that were just, head and shoulders above ours. But we won number 4 singles and all 3 doubles. And Vic Satius, Grand Slam doubles champion, said out loud for me to hear, "How come their doubles teams are destroying our doubles teams?"
It's called good coaching.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and so that was a lot of fun. But unfortunately, that other team opened themselves to an upset because they didn't warm up very well.
Yep.
They had an attitude that it was going to be easy, and blah, blah, blah. And then, I'm just going to say one more thing, because one of my things about warming up for a match, because that preparation is really important. If we have a 3:30 match, I want everybody on court hitting at 3:00. So you don't arrive at 3:00 and chit chat and get on the court at 3:07, right? You are on the court at 3:00 hitting. You're going to hit 10 minutes of ground strokes. You're going to hit 10 minutes of, volleys and overheads. And then we're going to have 5 full minutes of serving and then we'll bring it in. We'll have a little talk for 5 minutes before we go do intros. So, having a very regimented ritual of how you prepare for your match also creates this ability for them to flow right into the match. And I love the fact that after 5 full minutes of serving, I know my kids aren't going to have they're not going to have a tight first serve game.
Yep.
So,
preparation, what do they say, is 90% of success, and how you do it, how you prepare for it, how you organize it, mentally, physically, is absolutely a key. So I think it's some great information. I hope all of you who are listening or paying attention to this are understanding that depending on where your team is, whether you're taking over a team that, like Bill took over, that hadn't won a match in X number of years, or you're taking on a team that's perennial champions. When I took over my last team before I retired, Park City, which, we're talking $1 billion properties, very, very dominant, had won state 3 years in a row, wiped us out the first time we played them. Second time we played them, a little bit closer. Third time we played them, a little bit closer. And then we played them 4 times after that, wiped them out, just beat them badly. They never won a state title again, at least while I was coaching. And so one of the things that you as a coach have got to impress upon your players is that while you may be playing a team that is exceptionally good, as Bill said earlier, you need to learn from that, because that's what you're going to surpass. You're not going to become equal to them. You're going to surpass them. And so once you do all the things that Bill and I have talked about, from organizing to creating the mechanisms that allow players to believe in themselves, as well as believe that they can, if they work hard, they can move up on your team ladder. The greatest tool, when I talk about in my coaching book, let's see if I can see it in there, High School Coaching Mastery, I talk a lot about the greatest tool to inspire kids to want to get better is your team ladder. And using, I have a year-round ladder that I pull the seniors off, they're graduating, and move everybody up. And then, of course, we have incoming freshmen that I either place by seeing how they hit, or we do a round robin and identify that way. But regardless, that ladder we challenge every day, and every kid knows if they get better, they have a chance to move up, move up, move up. And the people on the high have got to realize, if I don't get better, these guys are going to pass me. So that's the biggest advantage. My father and I have both, when he was coaching before I started coaching, really bought into the ladder, and without question, it's been proven in 3 states that I've coached in, and created the most successful teams in the country through that process. So I know there's a lot of different ideas of ladders and how to do it. You've got to find out what works, but just don't discount the intrinsic value of creating individuals who want to get better, because you give them that option, or that opportunity.
Yeah. And there are a couple of sayings that I like. One of them is quitters never win and winners never quit.
Yep.
Winners play, losers stay home. So I think, when we kind of redefine what does it mean to win and what is a winner, winner, like Teddy Roosevelt's, the champion in the arena. Go read The Champion in the Arena by Teddy Roosevelt. It's pretty awesome. But the fact that your kids are being brave and they're putting themselves out there and they're going to compete, it makes them better, win or lose. So,
right.
I always tell my kids, look, winning doesn't make you a winner, and losing doesn't make you a loser. So now what else is there? What there is there's improvement. And, part of the way that I sell winning culture is I say, look, our goal is to become the most improved team in the league or in the conference, or, there have been some schools I've coached where I'm pretty sure we're the most improved team in the entire section. And it makes me very proud to say that. I'm very proud of them and what they've done. And so, so I'm going to end with this. So I got a call like 6 or 7 years ago from a kid, and he's like, and he says, "Hey, coach, I'm calling you from the West Side." And this is Andrew, who did not win a match until the very final match of his junior year. He had lost all of his matches until the final match of the junior year. When he won, it helped us win 4-3 to snap the 37 match losing streak. So now he has graduated from college, and he's calling me up because he's moving into his apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And he says, "Coach, I just want to let you know I'm going into the Navy, and I'm going to become a surgeon. The Navy is paying for Columbia Medical School." And so I said, like anybody would, "Can we change positions?" So yeah, I want to be younger, and I want to be where you are, and I'll live your life, and then you can be old and broken down and live where I live. So anyway, so he said this. He said, "Coach, thanks for making me a winner." And I mean, it's really heavy. And I was like, "Wait a minute, Andrew, listen. All I did was lay out a program and a process, and you followed it perfectly. So give yourself the credit." I mean, I'm really honored that you would think of me that way. And it means a lot, but don't sell yourself short. I mean,
Right.
You did the work.
Right.
I didn't do the work. But, so as coaches, when we look at outcomes like that, so Andrew won the final match of his junior year, and then I left that school. And then the next year he won 5 or 6 matches, and the team ended up winning 4 matches 4 times than the year before. I mean, that's very satisfying when you see that kind of thing happening. So, it's always worthwhile to put the effort in to just make that incremental improvement, because then the message is you can move towards whatever goal you have in life.
Yeah, the life skills generated through a really well-ran tennis program, golf program, sports program, are visible years later. And like you got that call years later, when we do our alumni match in Southern California, all my players from those years that were so successful always come back and honor myself, honor the program, honor themselves as a team. And all of them have written me through social media or letters that have identified how much tennis gave them the tools to be successful doctors, dentists, attorneys, financial advisors, whatever. And my dad had a favorite saying. It's not the size of the boy in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the boy. And that could be obviously girl or anything, but it really, I've had my number 1 kid in Southern California. He weighed 92 pounds his senior year. He won 72 consecutive matches. He won 68 his junior year. His name was Roger Hill. Unfortunately died in a car accident right after he graduated. But here was a kid, tiny David and Goliath storyline, and he had more fight. In fact, I think I may have mentioned this story where he was playing his teammate for the finals of a region title, and Mike is playing this guy named Mike, and Mike was a really stocky, short but stocky, strong kid. And at the end of the match, Roger, the small little 92-year-old, beat him like 2-2.
92 pounds. He wasn't 92 years old.
No, 92 pounds. Did I say 92 years? He had the experience.
Wow, Dave. That's a great story. He had a 92-year-old senior. Wow.
He was on the 50-year plan. But anyway, he comes up to shake hands with the bigger kid that he beat, and he slugs him. He absolutely levels him. And my dad was coaching. He and I were coaching together, and my dad runs out there and he goes, "Why, Roger, did you hit Mike? You just beat him." And Roger said, "Because he didn't try hard enough to beat me." and he wanted to beat Mike with Mike playing his hardest in his mind. And that was the kind of fight this kid had. Not that we would advise players from slugging each other out, but this kid just had that intense drive to want not only beat you, but beat you while you're playing your best. So never, every kid's different, but size is certainly not a major factor in creating champions.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So if we kind of look at the macro of what we're doing here, I mean, we're telling some stories, and stories are really important. So another thing that I do with my teams is I tell them stories of past players who've done things, who faced adversity and overcame it, right? And then they go, wait a minute, so that happened at this school? So wait, there's a kid that did that, and you remember it? And then sort of the subconscious message is, if you do heroic things, then stories will be told about you later. And it, I think it's one of those things that Wayne Bryan calls sidebar motivation, right? So there's this. So you don't have to motivate them directly by telling them what to do, but you tell them stories about other great players from the past, and especially maybe players that some of the kids still remember. And you go, hey, you remember this kid? Do you remember when he had to go through that, and then what he did and how he overcame that? And then kids go, oh yeah, it is possible. So anyway, that's all I've got. Do you have any final words for us, Dave, as we wrap this thing up?
I think the last thing I can tell you is that if you highlight your players, it's sort of like the gym has the glass trophy case, and it has pictures from decades, who knows, however old your school is, but and people walk in there and they see these pictures. They don't know who the players are, but they do know they're perpetually held in esteem to be in this trophy case. So that was another thing that we put up on our banner, was not just our team's championships, but the individual singles region champions, doubles region champions, state singles, state doubles, so that they saw my incoming kids are looking up there going, wow, look at those kids that have been up there for 10 years. They get to see that perpetuality of being recognized. And that's a very, like you just said, what Wayne was saying, that back door, that sidebar kind of, I don't even have to point to it. I just say, there's our previous champions, join the club. And the kids want to get on that. And I've had kids even tell me, I want my name on that banner. I want my name on that banner. And I can't do better than that.
Well, if I was on your team, I would probably late at night get up there with a Sharpie and just write my name up there.
It's pretty high up. You need a ladder.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I have an 18-foot ladder, but all right. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for taking the time to spend time with us. I mean, I think what I see is we've had like 4, 5, 6. I mean, at one moment it looked like 10 people were watching, but if you're seeing this later, or if you have any questions, just go ahead and put that in there. David and I are going to do this again. I don't know if it's going to be next Sunday, but it could be. Could be. No, actually, no, it will not be next Sunday. But we will, another day this week, we will have one of these. And I really appreciate you listening. But yeah, I mean, and then I guess my final word is, just think about unique things that you can do to foster, a winning belief in your players. And, you can find things to attach it to, or you can sometimes just conjure it out of nothing, but you really have to believe. So thanks and goodbye.
Have a good day.